Hey there, and welcome back. This time we're going to be taking a look at another piece of AI-related software. It's Google's brand new IDE, and they're calling it Antigravity. I've only seen a couple of examples of some stuff on social media, and it's been very interesting to see they're taking a slightly different approach to IDEs that are AI-powered. But one of the interesting things about the Antigravity IDE is that it's also powered by their latest Gemini 3 model. So at least at the time of recording, the Gemini 3 model is supposed to be really state-of-the-art in a lot of different areas, including in some coding benchmarks. So this is going to be an interesting review. And currently, if we check out the pricing section on the Antigravity page, they are in public preview, so they don't have any plans. You are going to be able to access Gemini 3 Pro, and it seems like some other models. I wasn't aware of that. Claude Sonnet 4.5 and GPT, their open source model. You get unlimited tab completions, unlimited command requests, and generous rate limits. So in this review, we're going to be taking a look at how does it compare? How does it stack up to the other AI-powered IDEs? Any strengths that we detect, any weaknesses, any issues we might run into. But really, more than anything, I'm just kind of excited to test it out. This is Google's first real attempt at a desktop IDE. They had a web-based interface where you could use the models and kind of do some coding in there. But as far as I know, it wasn't really well received. Not too many people were using it just because it was so limited. So this is going to be their real first foray into actual IDE territory. So it'll be interesting to see what decisions they've made and incorporated into this new anti-gravity product, and whether it's actually going to be different enough to be worth using, or if you should maybe just stick to whatever tool you're already using. So I've already gone ahead, downloaded and installed it. The only thing I didn't record was the setup process, which was essentially me just logging into my Google account. You do need a Google account to actually use it. You can see I've logged in right here. The only other things it asked me were to pick a theme. I think there were 4 options. And also if I wanted to import any of my settings from another IDE. Cursor was definitely an option. I don't remember what the other IDE was. It might have been Windsurf. And so this is my real first impression. I'm just opening it up. Looks very much like it's based on Visual Studio Code, as pretty much every single one of the IDEs are, with the exception of Zed. So very familiar. Let's see, we've got a changelog up here. We are logged in to my Google account. We've got a Chrome button here. Okay. So one of the interesting things about this IDE was that because it's put together by Google, obviously it's going to be tightly integrated with Chrome. And so for any sort of web development, it's going to be able to use Chrome to preview the changes it's made and then use that real browser preview to fix things and continue to make edits. So that was pretty interesting and definitely something we're going to want to take a look at. So on the bottom, terminal, primary, sidebar. Yeah, this is very much like just Visual Studio Code. A folder, we can customize the layout. That's kind of nice. And some of the other IDEs like Cursor, you really are quite limited in the layout that you can have. And so if you want to move things around, that's not really possible. So it's nice to see that at least in this one, you can swap things around if you prefer a different layout. So we have our standard AI chat window here. We have 2 modes: planning. Agent can plan before executing tasks, used for deep research, complex tasks, or collaborative work. Or fast. Agent will execute tasks directly, used for simple tasks that can be completed faster. Okay, so really just 2 modes. Interesting naming convention. It's not like planning and acting. Interesting there. And then if we take a look at the models, we have Gemini 3 Pro High, Gemini 3 Pro Low, Claude Sonnet 4.5, the thinking variant, and the open source GPT model on medium thinking. So to really put it through its paces, we need to have some sort of a project. And because this IDE has such a tight integration with Chrome, we really want it to be a web-based project. So what I was thinking of for the project was some sort of a skeleton of a website where hopefully at some point we'll be able to host an AI benchmark. Nowadays, there are so many benchmarks for different things. Some of them are very silly. Some of them are a bit more serious, like how likely is an AI model to try and contact authorities if it detects that the user is doing maybe something illegal, or on the more silly side, how well an AI model can create graphics for things like a game controller or a pelican on a bicycle. The one that immediately came to mind was some sort of a benchmark around how well is the AI model able to manipulate WorkFlowy? How well is it able to understand the structure of WorkFlowy, to manipulate it? It just seemed like an interesting way to benchmark AI models, how well they're able to understand WorkFlowy layouts, manipulate them, update them, things like that. And then I'd also like to add a component of the benchmark where we then ask it to run the tests on an actual test WorkFlowy account, pull in the data, make the changes, push the data back out, and then score the results. That entire project will be for another day. Today, we just want to kick the tires a little bit, And so I think just getting the front end of this web page set up with some random numbers and charts in there would be good enough just to give us an idea of how does this IDE feel compared to its competitors. So I just created a new folder to hold our files. Do you trust the authors of the files in the folder? Antigravity may cause an AI agent to take unsafe actions based on the file's content that can result in data exfiltration or data loss. If you don't trust the authors of these files, we recommend to continue in restricted mode as the files may be malicious. See our docs to learn more. So that's kind of interesting because I'm just going to click trust because I made the file. It's interesting how, because we have so many AI models running code now autonomously, the files that you download from our project have become an interesting new attack surface. You could imagine someone putting malicious code for the AI models to read in a repository. You ask the model to read through the repository to explain the structure or to answer some questions or whatever comes across those malicious commands, executes them, and then obviously the more permissions it has and the more access it has to different parts of your operating system, the more damage it can do. So kind of interesting to keep in the back of our minds, but because we are creating these projects, it's totally fine. So now the only other thing that changed other than us seeing our files here, this is very much just part of a Visual Studio Code, so nothing new here, is this thing right here, switch to Agent Manager and code with agent. So let me just switch to Agent Manager. Okay, so we got this pop up here, welcome to Agent Manager. In the Agent Manager, start agents on tasks like deep research, long-running projects, or background tasks. You can monitor the progress of multiple agents in the inbox and review their work when they're done. So we've got this thing called the Agent Manager, which allows us to run multiple agents. And so then by hitting Command E, we switch over to the editor window where we can take a look at what one particular agent is doing, like our standard code editor view. We've got an inbox here, start conversation. So this is very different compared to the other code editors. We have workspaces and we have playground. Interesting. This is a different approach, and we're going to see what that actually feels like. And so it opened up on top of the code editor. I'm not sure if it's supposed to do that, or because it feels kind of weird. Like this should be part of the actual application, not just a window floating on top. And so this feels like I'm just inside of some large language model front end, like the one for ChatGPT or Claude. Start a new conversation in WorkFlowy bench. Okay, we'll just use this and see how it goes. So here we go. I just wrote a prompt. I want to create a benchmark for large language models based on how well they can manipulate WorkFlowy documents, both as standalone markdown files and through their official API. Work on the front end of this project, so we need some way to display the different results for the AI models we're going to be testing. So I want you to come up with some placeholder data we can use, but feel free to label the real models that are available, and also come up with some metrics that we could potentially use to score the models on this benchmark. I'm just going to leave it on Gemini 3 Pro high because we also want to test that. And let me just check here. We can add a context, pretty standard images or mentions. I guess we can mention other files or other projects. And then we've got some options here. Open editor, use playground. We really just want to start a new conversation in this project. So let's hit send and we'll see what happens. All right. So it has created a new thread in this workspace. Oh, and it just kind of automatically hid this, and it's going real fast. I'm trying to just keep up. This just feels like a standard conversation. This feels like what you might find inside of Cursor or inside of Windsurf. So we're seeing the different steps, thought for 5 seconds, and then it did something. It analyzed the empty folder. And it's kind of expanding and collapsing. I don't really like that because it's visually jarring. Maybe we can change that. Next thing it did is created some tasks. Maybe we'll just keep it open. It's created some tasks. You can click view. Okay, so that's what it showed us just a moment ago. Let's collapse this. Project setup and planning, started the project. So it created task.md, now planning the implementation and setting up project. So it's got an implementation plan, progress update. This block here is kind of interesting. It seems to be grouping different related activities. I'll set up a Vite React app and create some realistic placeholder data for models like GPT-4 and Claude 3.5. So maybe some of the limitations of the training data, it's mentioning GPT-4 when GPT-5 and 5.1 are out. Claude is obviously beyond 3.5. So we've got our implementation plan, proceeding with implementation plan. Project setup, plan approved, starting project initialization. Well, I didn't approve it, but I guess it approved it for itself. So it's creating the necessary files we're going to need, and then updating the progress, running commands. One step requires input. So interesting. Okay, we got a lot of things going on here. So on the left, we have the running thread of the different commands and the summary. On the right-hand side, we have some of the tasks here. So we've got project setup. So it's going to initialize our project, set up tailwinds, comment on artifacts, select content within artifacts to leave a comment for the agent. So this is pretty interesting. This is almost like if the AI model was your coworker. You're just treating it as an additional coder. You can just select part. In this case, the little animation here is this plan right here. So let me just dismiss it. So it seems like we can just do something like select anything, click comment, leave a comment, maybe use a different library or use a different framework or whatever. You can just comment directly into the plan and maybe in other places. So let's see here. We'll just give it permission, let it do its thing. And I'm still kind of wondering why this is sitting on top of the IDE. As you can see, it's below here and we've got the same plan. So what is this thing supposed to be? Can I open it down here? So maybe we switch over for just a second. Can I open this anywhere? I mean, this just looks like the agent. And we've got the task down here. So if we just click into it. Okay, maybe this is how you do it. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure what that other view is for, if this is the same information, because we do have that option up here, Open Agent Manager, and that just opens this up. I guess if we were running multiple of these, or we wanted to go through the history of it or whatever, this might make sense, but let me just close this up and see if we still have access to everything. What is this? So it's letting us know it's got changes overview, so we can look at all the files it's changed. It says 0 files with changes, but it's definitely creating a bunch of files. Maybe those are not counted as changes, they're just because they're brand new. And then we've got terminal, 1 background process running, artifacts, 2 files for conversation. If we click on those, we've got the plan, which we've got right here, and we've got the task list. So we can close that out. Let's open up the terminal, 1 background process running. Can we expand it to take a look at that? Can't seem to be able to go any further than that, just see like the latest command that it's running. So it's interesting to see how those ideas from the first days of using AI models to code things in IDEs have really been incorporated into the latest products. So this sort of a thing like creating a list of tasks for the agent to perform was something that, one, the agent was not really able to do. You had to keep this list for yourself and then tell the model to do the things for you. And then at some point you would create a markdown file and point the model to it. And then in agentic mode, it would be able to mark things off. But this really does feel like it is now taking that idea and completely incorporating it into how the IDE works. Okay, so here we go. It seems to have finished everything and the video is clocking in at around 30 something minutes. That was pretty fast because obviously it took some time to explain things and I installed it and so on. So now we're at verifying UI and sorting functionality. Preview. Antigravity would like to use the browser. So this is where maybe things get a little bit interesting. So I'm just going to click on setup. It's going to try to launch the browser. All right, so it just opened up Chrome, obviously. Bring the Antigravity agent into your browser to see and interact with websites. It empowers the agent to test features, intelligently monitor dashboards, and seamlessly handle routine browser tasks. Okay, let's do it. Sign into Chrome. And here we go, localhost. And so this is the agent. This is the agent opening up the page. This is what it looks like. Taking screenshot, getting DOM. Okay, interesting. So now the agent, there we go. And there was a click. So the little blue dot shows us where the agent is. As you saw, there was like this blue gradient around the page. I'm guessing that lets us know it's in agent mode and the agent is actually controlling the browser. So that was pretty cool. That was very quick. This is looking okay. It's not the greatest. Definitely could use some work, but it was very fast. So as maybe some boilerplate, that was very, very fast. Now let's jump back into Antigravity and see what we've got. So added a couple of files, accept all. Let's see what it says. I finished building the WorkFlowy LLM benchmark front end. It features a premium dark mode design, a sortable leaderboard, and the requested placeholder data/metrics. Check out the walkthrough for a preview. So this is a new artifact. Front end implementation includes screenshots of the dashboard and details on the tech stack and metrics. So let's take a look at that. So I'm clicking open, but nothing is actually happening. I don't know if I need to do something else. Maybe we open it up in Agent Manager. We'll jump into that workspace, open it up here. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Kind of strange that it doesn't show up in the actual main, what I would consider like the main application, but let's resize this. Everything is really small. I'm just going to bump up the font size so you can take a look at that. And here's what we got. The walkthrough. Successfully implemented the front end. Changes implemented. This is maybe just a summary. Data and metrics. Front end implementation. verification results. I verified the dashboard's appearance and functionality using the browser tools. So this is a screenshot that I took. And then if we click review, just kind of lets us zoom in. Oh, interesting. This is very nice. So in the same way that you can leave comments on the implementation plan, you can just, the same way you would with a human programmer, you might take a screenshot, highlight some things and let them know, hey, move this around this way or shift this thing around, or what is this thing, or this button is broken. So that's pretty cool. The fact that it incorporates all of this into the actual IDE is really nice. Obviously, you could do this with any of the other coding tools that use AI, but you have to take the screenshot, annotate it, put it back in the conversation. Having it all built in is just really nice. The dashboard renders correctly with a sticky header, animated entry for the hero section and metric cards, clean sortable leaderboard table. Next steps, connect to a real backend or API to fetch live benchmark results, implement the model detail view for in-depth analysis, add more complex visualizations. Okay, that was really fast. I'm very surprised. That was about 30 minutes. Obviously, it's not the greatest looking thing in the world. It's actually kind of ugly, but in terms of just getting something up and running in a single prompt, it checked its own work. That was really cool, and that was really fast. So now maybe while we're in here, let's poke around a little more, because this is really the special view, the agent manager view. So we've got an inbox. I wonder what that's for. Click that. Inbox. Pending. Okay. So this is the task we gave to the AI. It's idle. This is the title. This is the folder. Okay. So I guess if you have tasks that are currently running, you could filter those out. Yeah, what is this inbox for though? Why wouldn't you just start it in a workspace? I'm not really sure what this is about. Maybe this is just kind of how you start projects. And then we've got the playground, so let's try that. These look pretty similar. Start a conversation in playground, ask for anything. Okay, so this seems like it's just going to be a scratch pad. And then down here we've got knowledge. Agent has not generated any knowledge items yet. Knowledge items are persistent memories that the agent creates to store information for future reference. Particular issues or quirks about a framework, your library, your project that you're using. If you're familiar with ChatGPT, and I think Claude also has it, just memories. And so maybe same kind of a thing. Browser, just opens up the browser. Settings. Review policy specifies agent's behavior when asking for review on artifacts, which are documents it creates to enable a richer conversation. Agent never asks for review. Agent decides when to ask for review. Agent will always ask for review. So depending on how much you trust your AI agent or how sensitive it is that it's messing around within the project, you can change this. And then you can change if we've got terminal command auto execution, same kind of a deal. I'm just going to leave it as is for both. And just like the other AI powered IDEs, you can set specific commands that you will not allow the agent to run in the terminal, or that you will always let it run in the terminal. Some stuff about file access, letting the agent open and edit certain types of files, automation, giving the agent awareness of lint errors, and then letting it fix them without having to wait for you to go, hey, fix the errors. Auto continue. When enabled, agent will automatically continue its responses when it reaches its per response invocation limit. If this setting is off, agent will instead prompt you to continue upon reaching that limit. So I'm going to assume this is based on the different models. Some of them are just going to hit some sort of a limit. And if this is off, it will just automatically continue going beyond that limit. Or if you want it to prompt you to manually continue, I don't know why you would want to do that, but maybe to prevent it from getting to some sort of an infinite loop or something like that. I'm not really sure. And then we have web tools and OpenAgent on reload. They even have under advanced settings enabled demo mode. When enabled, your UI will be slightly modified to ensure more consistent demos. This is only recommended for demo purposes. In most cases, you can run anti-gravity start demo mode and anti-gravity stop demo mode to control this switch and update your settings. And so as expected, here's where you can set some permissions around the browser access, things like executing JavaScript, and just some settings for Chromium profiles and things like that. And so it's using the openvsx.org version of the Visual Studio Marketplace, so just the open version of that, notifications, so tab completion, things like that. And that is it for settings, not a lot. All right, so now let's just continue prompting it a little bit more, see if we can't turn that very basic front end to something a little bit nicer. That's a good start, but the design is a little bit minimalistic. Could we add some interactive charts and tables so the visitor can filter through the different models? So now we're going to switch it over to fast mode, leave Gemini 3 Pro on high, click send, and we'll see what we get. When an agent is running, just changes over into running. Pending doesn't filtered. So I'm assuming this is when an agent requires some sort of input, like when it was asking us if it could run the commands to actually install the different dependencies we're going to need. And we can also jump into Playground just to run a little test just to see where this code goes, what happens to it, and what can we do with it. All right, and so I just want to play with this a little bit, generate a simulation of the solar system in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS that will fit into one single HTML file. So let's just send it off. And so it created it down here under Playground. We've got something in the inbox, but I'm guessing this one here, idle. Let's take a look. Oh, interesting. So it actually has to run on top of whatever window you're using to take the screenshot, it seems like. Because while I was writing the prompt for the little Playground experiment, it actually popped up the browser and started doing its thing. And I just kind of switched over to what I was doing and just assumed it would be able to take the screenshot. Apparently not. It needs to be on top of whatever you're doing. All right. It just switched over to another tab. Each time it's creating a brand new tab in the Chrome browser. Very nice simulation. And it seems to be checking some things in the DOM because it's doing that a couple of times. Taking a screenshot. Okay. And it seems to be done. We have this little blue dot here. I'm assuming that lets us know it is done doing whatever it's doing. Generated the solar system simulation in a single file. You can open this file directly in your browser to view the simulation and just a description of what it's got in here and where is the file located. Okay. And it seems we can also comment on files the same way we can comment on the different artifacts like the plans and the screenshots, which I believe you can do in other AI-powered IDEs, but this is the one where I've seen it be just that really explicit about that. And so now I'm wondering, where does this file actually live? It's not immediately obvious to me. And we've got some files. We've got solar system check. This looks like the recording. So this is what the AI model saw, or at least what it recorded. And then, obviously extracted the information from here. Pretty cool. We've also got a screenshot and we've got the HTML file. So what else can we do here? We can open it in the browser. We're going to mess with the sliders, speed, zoom. Okay, nice. It does work. And then what else? We have move your work into a folder. Your conversation and file contents will be preserved in the selected folder. So right now, it seems like they're probably just in some sort of temporary directory. And then you choose if you want to save them somewhere, or like the name says, it's just a playground. You can delete the conversation. So maybe place the test out ideas, make little prototypes before you're ready to push them into a folder. So move playground to a folder. Okay. And then just terminal, open the editor. Yeah, this is really, I'm not quite getting why it does this. So there really are two main windows, and I don't know why they're not incorporated, or it's just a single button, agent taking unexpectedly long to load. So they both have to be open, it seems. So this is just, let's say, keep it background. So this is really just a place to, like the name says, manage the agents, but the agents are actually running in the IDE. So the IDE window also needs to be open somewhere. You can keep it minimized, but it does need to be open. Otherwise you're killing the processes that run the agents. And then lastly, we've got follow along the agent. I'm assuming if it was actually doing something, it would just, we would see it jumping around the different files, adding code, making changes, things like that. And we also seem to have some changes. So let's take a look at our benchmark. I've updated the dashboard to include interactive visualizations and filtering controls. Okay, let's take a look at the changes. So a little bit better, but this still looks pretty rough. Not exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting something a little more visually appealing. There are no tables here. There are no interactive diagrams or anything like that. So let's give that another try. This time, let's give it a little bit of help. I want to give it a screenshot so it has an idea of the type of thing I'm talking about. I'm just going to go to, this is artificialanalysis.ai, by the way, a really great place to look at the latest benchmarks for the different AI models kind of really as they come out. They tend to collaborate with the model providers ahead of time. So they'll give them a preview, let them run their benchmarks. So by the time they announce them, all the information is already here. So just a very simple graph that, you can hover over, you get more information. You've got some filters. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. So for some reason, Gemini 3 is just kind of struggling with that. Drop in that screenshot right here to give it a better idea, see if we get some better results that way. There we go. So I think I'm starting to get the idea behind this. They really want you to send a bunch of agents to work in different workspaces on different projects at the same time. And so this inbox sort of a layout makes sense for that. However, if you're only working on one project at a time, like I usually am, this really is not that useful. For the most part, I'm just kind of focused on a single repository. So this view doesn't make a ton of sense to me. It also is a little bit annoying to have to switch between this and the editor view because it also has what the agent is doing. So the agent manager view feels a little redundant. This is more like if you're managing a bunch of different models at the same time. And then when you want to poke in the actual code, you would open the editor and make the changes yourself. But very different approach. For me, this feels like a much better view. It's much more familiar. This is essentially just Visual Studio with maybe just a couple little changes. How does it compare to other AI-powered IDEs? It's definitely got an interesting approach. However, it is VS-based, so it's also kind of familiar. That means your plugins and configurations are going to be able to work in this. You'll just be able to port them in. So it just feels pretty familiar with an additional layer for managing multiple agents. Some of the strengths, it's got a unique way, like I said, of dealing with multiple agents running in parallel. It's got this interesting inbox kind of a system where you just set off the different agents. You have one dashboard to monitor and just wait for them to need something from you or to review their work with the screenshots, with the video, with the checking the tasks and things, just giving it feedback and then sending it off to fix its errors or continue with the next steps. Another thing I thought was kind of cool were the artifacts, which are, as I mentioned, things that we've seen presented as best practices in other AI-powered IDEs. And in Antigravity, they seem to be really incorporated into the product. They're not just instructions or best practices or things you're supposed to do. They are just the way the system runs. So you get a project description, you get a list of tasks. It takes screenshots to review the work if it's something based on the web. And so it's just continuing to make the entire process of coding with AI a lot more standardized, a lot easier to use for anyone. And of course, that strong Chrome integration for checking the work if it's a web-based project, that's really good. And while it's definitely not the only IDE that can do this, there's got to be something said for the fact that it is Google doing it. It's doing it through Chrome. So it's their AI agent with their browser in their IDE. And so if there's a setup where the agent would have the most context available to it, I would imagine it's going to be this one. It's just Google on top of Google on top of Google. Some of the weaknesses, as you saw, there were only about 3 different models, most of them being Google's. You've got Claude in there, and then you have the open source version of GPT. Can't bring your own keys yet, or maybe ever. I have no idea. I'm sure they'll probably get around that with some plugin as they do in some of the other IDEs. But officially, you can't bring your own keys. So if you hit those limits and you are really enjoying Antigravity, you really can't do much except wait for your usage to be refreshed. And there's no pricing information yet, so we have no idea how competitive it's going to be compared to the alternatives out there. So if you maybe get attached to it and then find out it's going to be really expensive, that would be a shame. Not likely, because this is Google. I would imagine they're going to try to get it into the hands of as many developers as possible, even eating some of the cost for running the agents, their own Gemini models, but no pricing information yet. The only real thing that I had an issue with was that weird dual window thing. So this thing where we've got the standard Visual Studio Code view with the AI agent stuff on the right-hand side, and then the agent manager thing. And they are different windows, and you have to have, as far as I can tell, the editor open. If I close the agent manager, nothing happens. It's totally fine. I can just continue to use the models and talk to them here. But if I open up the agent manager and I want to close the editor for whatever reason, I have a problem. I have to keep it running in the background because this is actually what is running everything. The other window is really just kind of a skin that manages all the different projects you have open. So that's kind of a shame. And so we seem to have run into a snag just as I was trying to tell the agent. It was at this step right here, verifying the new design, and then it just said running for quite a long time. So it seems to have gotten to some sort of a state where it just can't continue. Tried sending another message and nothing happened. So now I'm not sure how do we do this. I guess we just kill this conversation and just start a new one. But it is kind of weird that we can't actually seem to kill it from this view, which is something you could do from pretty much every IDE that uses AI. Yeah, just send another message and it disappeared into the ether. So that's a shame. And by the way, here are the changes that the model made. I'm not sure what this lone W is for. This looks still pretty bad. Kind of an interesting effect. However, we don't have any interactive charts or anything like that. I even included the screenshot, so that's kind of annoying. Not quite sure why it wasn't able to do that. And so just out of curiosity, I went ahead and ran this prompt, improved this project's visuals with interactive charts, and I included the screenshot, didn't give any context for what this screenshot is supposed to be or where it's from or what I even want it to do with the screenshot. The only thing I did was switch over to Claude Sonnet 4.5. Now this is supposed to be Google's moment to really demonstrate what Gemini 3 is capable of. I've used the previous Gemini model. I believe it was 2.5 Pro, and that worked pretty well. Maybe I just got very unlucky. And so I'm just running Claude to see if it can quickly improve the design. Claude tends to be a lot better at front-end things, but we'll find out. And so I'm also running it with a different non-Google model just to get a sense of how capable it is if the agent manager thing still works, even if we're not using Gemini. And so it does. It seems to be working just fine. Here we go. I had to start a new conversation because, as I mentioned, the first one completely crashed, but it looks pretty similar. The feed that we get here is not nearly as rich as the one where Gemini is running. We get things kind of grouped into sections. We get snippets of the code and the commands it's running in the terminal, things like that. I don't know if that's going to be changed in the future or if that's just because obviously it's their model, so they can do all kinds of interesting things. So while Claude was doing its thing, I went to get a glass of water. And as I was coming back into the room, I caught it doing the same thing that Gemini was able to do, which is it opened up the browser. It was taking a screenshot and then it just kind of left it on this window. That's another thing that's a little bit annoying. I wish it would, if it's going to open up the browser, then just minimize the browser when it's done. Like somebody messed with your computer and then just didn't bother to close the browser window. I'm curious if there's some sort of a deeper issue because, like I said, Claude tends to be pretty good about front-end things, and this is still looking pretty bad. Here we go. So it seems like this is what's been causing it. It's been opening up the browser because I have this option here, follow along with the agent. And so when it's making the changes, that's also why the panel kept opening. Well, not this one, but the code panel kept opening so we could see the changes, which is a bit jarring. Because I have it set to automatically accept all the changes, it didn't make much sense. It was opening up the panel, showing me the code. It wasn't asking me if I wanted to keep the changes because I set it to automatically do that, or the agent was choosing to do that. So it just kept showing me the differences and then hiding them. And that was kind of annoying because of the way the settings work. So it seems the same thing happens with the browser. You can turn that off and probably just opens up the browser, takes the screenshot, does the recording or whatever, and then lets you continue to do stuff on top of it. So this is still running. It's supposed to be doing something in the browser, but I know that that is not the case. So I'm not sure what to do here. If we actually go into Chrome, we can see that the agent is not active. It's not doing anything, but it has not realized that. So, oh, nope, there we go. It's doing something, getting DOM. Although it shouldn't matter. I should be able to just switch out into Antigravity. There we go. It's doing the things. Scrolled in browser, move mouse in browser, wait 5 seconds. Okay. Yeah, so now we're not following the agent. It's just doing its things. And here we go. Finally stopped having that issue. This is the last comment I had sent, but that's fine. Doesn't matter. We're running it now with Claude here in this other instance. And even though I had set it to not follow the agent, it opened up the browser again on top of my window. Maybe it's just because you have to change that setting at the start of your session. I changed it in the middle. That's probably what it is. So it's interesting. It's saying capturing the screenshot of the area chart and scatter plot. There is no area chart and scatter plot. So I'm not sure what it's actually taking a screenshot of. Maybe we'll be able to see what happens when it realizes that the thing that it's taking a screenshot of is not there. There we go. Here's where it's storing the screenshots. Now it's analyzing the screenshots. I'm not seeing those area charts and things. Smooth animations with staggered timing, interactive tool tips on hover. I'm not seeing any of that. That's really weird. So if we jump into the actual page, I'm not seeing any of that. I don't know where the model is. There are no interactive charts. I mean, this is the only chart. We can select a model here and yeah, it'll switch, it'll filter, but that's about it. I don't know. Yeah, this is really weird. I'm not seeing what the models are seeing. Okay, so I just told it I'm not seeing any charts on the page or in your screenshots. You're right. Let me check what's actually happening, what's showing on the page. So weird. It took the screenshots, but I mean, to my eyes, there is no change there. Okay, it's detecting some issues or what it thinks are the issues. But it's weird because, you know, we just saw it said analyzing such and such screenshot and that clearly did not. I don't know if that's a problem with the model, with the IDE, or something else. It's going to take some more screenshots, it seems. There we go. And it finished wrapping up the changes. By the way, something I noticed that is kind of amazing. I have never heard my computer spin up the fan before, and it is going really loud right now. So I guess it's all the browser stuff that's happening in the background. And so if we open up Chrome, okay, finally we get some charts. Things are looking a little bit better. The spacing, the alignment, these are all very annoying, but we actually have some charts now. So much better. Okay, so this is the sort of thing we were looking for, not this kind of a thing, which is fine, but it's not very interactive. And we've got glitches all over the place. Yeah, just not great, but at least we got something. So kind of disappointing. I was really expecting Gemini 3 Pro to really shine and show us its front end capabilities and how far Google has come ahead of the other models. In terms of front end, that was pretty awful. And it wasn't a terribly complicated task. Things like front end boilerplate, charts and graphs, things like that. There are libraries for that, and it's not terribly difficult to come up with something that looks pretty decent. And what we got here was something that was pretty terrible. I mean, honestly, like, what is this? Just, there are some parts that are salvageable, but most of it is just kind of all over the place. Claude 4.5 came in and made it a little bit better. The charts actually were working now. So very surprising, especially when it had those different artifacts, the ones for taking the screenshot and recording the video. It should have been able to see that the things in the instructions in the task list were not being completed. So in summary, Antigravity right now is obviously very much in preview mode. It is buggy because it crashed twice while I was running the review. It is not ready for prime time. And what's supposed to be its most standout feature, which is the Chrome integration, really was causing issues where the agent would start to take screenshots or try to take a recording and then open up the browser, just kind of hang there for a while. And I'm not sure if it was something that I did to kind of poke it along so it could continue running that process, or if it finally just did the thing it needed to do. So that was a bit confusing. That being said, there's a lot of really interesting ideas here and a lot of promise if they can make it work. This being Google, I'm honestly not terribly sure about that. There is a giant list of products that Google has started, invested a lot of time and money into, and then killed because it didn't align with their business goals, or they just moved on to the next shiny thing. So unfortunately, I think this is probably not going to last very long, if I'm being honest. I hope it does continue and they continue to refine and improve the system, because we do need some competition in the IDE space, or at the very least that other competitors take some of the ideas that I think are pretty cool, incorporate them into their own products, like taking the screenshots or the video and using that to review visually if the changes were made. That sort of a thing was pretty cool. Being able to access the DOM and see the results if they align with what is the expected output, that's pretty cool. A couple of really interesting ideas in here. I just hope they get the polish they deserve, or that other competitors adopt those ideas. So that's going to be it for the Antigravity review and test. I had really hoped that Gemini 3 was going to knock this out of the park and would give us the skeleton that we could then use to build out that WorkFlowy benchmark. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I think I'm going to have better results if I honestly just kind of trash the project and start over fresh in Cursor with Claude 4.5. If you liked the video and want me to review more AI products as they come out, be sure to let me know by liking the video, subscribing if you haven't already, or leaving a comment down below. So till then, see you in the next one.